As someone who admittedly spends too much time on social media, there's been a lot of discourse surrounding media literacy and anti-intellectualism, which has only been aggravated since the 2024 US election, especially on TikTok, or more specifically BookTok. From the very existence of this video and others alike, as well as the discourse itself, I think it's fair to say media literacy isn't dead. It's not possible for it to just become obsolete, but it is on the decline, and it has been for a long time now, especially with the rise of technology and social media. And this decline in media literacy is inseparable from the rise of anti-intellectualism. To be constructive when discussing this topic, I have to define what I mean when I'm using the terms media literacy and anti-intellectualism, because as is common on the internet, there's a lot of people throwing these words around without actually understanding what they mean, which only further validates the whole discourse. Media literacy is the ability to be able to access, engage with, and critically think about the media. And when I say the media, I mean everything from television to books to games to social media and podcasts. Media literacy is also the ability to produce and create media content. This is a regular part of our lives, and with the increased level of accessibility and technology, media literacy is more important now than ever. It's about our ability and competence in being able to comprehend what we're consuming. Anti-intellectualism, on the other hand, is a rejection of intellectualism and the dismissal of objectivity and critical thinking, placing one's own opinion, feelings, and personal experience as fact above what is actually objectively true. A form of anti-intellectualism that seems to be most popular is populist anti-elitism, which is essentially ordinary people against the elites, higher education, policymakers, the wealthy, and the privileged, which might sound akin to eat the rich but is very different. The metaphor of eat the rich is targeted towards the wealthy and the powerful, with the objective of addressing systemic inequalities and distribution of wealth and power. Anti-intellectualism, on the other hand, is targeted towards intellectuals and experts. It's not wanting to distribute privilege such as formal education that's been hoarded by the wealthy, more so wanting to undermine anything that could be perceived as elitist. It prioritizes traditional religious and populist ideas over modern or progressive ones. For example, those who reject scientific facts over more religious or conspiratorial beliefs are anti-intellectual. Which is why once Celine took to TikTok to express how she felt about the growth of anti-intellectualism, people came with their pitchforks sending her death threats, calling her elitist and classist. But she's right. This entire discourse of anti-intellectualism on BookTok has nothing to do with the genres of books you read, but you can't deny that there is a problem if you can only read one type of book, and if you have to condense an entire book into one trope.
A few weeks ago, I saw two videos on my For You page quite far apart from each other, both of which were recommending the Poppy War. The first one was a video telling you what the book was about, telling you all of the different themes, the genres, the tropes, telling you what this creator loved about the book. And the second video was someone recommending the Poppy War as a book with a powerful female protagonist. Both things are true. However, to absolutize the Poppy War into just a book about a powerful female protagonist, rather than the incredibly complex, quite traumatizing, very dark topic of what it actually is and how beautiful and difficult it is to create a book like that, to just a female, like a strong female character, is infuriating.
BookTok has romanticized and aestheticized reading. The act of reading, the purpose of reading is insignificant. Who cares what you're reading? Who cares about the stories you're reading about? Because books on BookTok have become algorithmized. Publishers only want to publish books of trending tropes because they know people will buy them. There's a factory type speed in which books are being published to keep up with the trending needs and to cash out on BookTok trends. Which is why, more often now, book readers can buy books that are poorly edited and have huge plot holes in them, because it's all about just selling whatever is popular, which is losing the art of storytelling. It feels more often on BookTok everyone's aiming to read an exuberant amount of books every year, which explains why it seems people have lost the ability to actually read.
Can we talk about something real quick though? Can I just talk shit for a second? Why the fuck is this book? First of all, the writing is so tiny. Second of all, why are the pages so filled with so many words? Like, what the fuck? I like pages that aren't filled with this many words. Like, literally every page is like, look at this. Are you fucking kidding me?
Oh, no. No.
Media literacy and intellectualism isn't telling someone that they have to analyze or write an analytical essay describing the prose and every character in every book they've ever read. I'm not telling you to explain to me what the rain means or what the red lipstick means and what the author is telling us by including them. It just means that if you've read a book or consumed a piece of media, you should have the ability to critically analyze and understand what you've read or what you've consumed. Because even if you don't have to, You should be able to as a result of consuming that media. Which is why I absolutely find it infuriating when people say it's not that deep, because maybe it is that deep. Maybe the blue curtains or the rain and the thunder mean nothing significant, or maybe they do. That is media literacy. Being able to read something and understand that it could mean nothing, it could mean something, or it could mean multiple things and have multiple interpretations. It's one thing to see people admitting they skim. I've done it, especially with academic reading, and that's impossible to complete in the time afforded. But when you're skimming half the book, how much media literacy can you have?
Okay. You got me there. But that is not a crime.
Not only that, but if you're completely skipping entire paragraphs and pages frequently, you have a literacy problem. And we do have a literacy problem, and book talk is only a reflection of the real world problem that children and young people lack literacy skills. A problem that's only worsened since the time that we were all stuck indoors in 2020. In November 2024, The Atlantic published an issue titled "The Elite College Student Who Can't Read Books," because college professors are realizing that students don't know how to read. They're not being taught in schools how to read, and they attend colleges and universities unable to critically engage in discussions of classic books like Pride and Prejudice and Crime and Punishment. They lack the reading comprehension to do so. And to some anti-intellectuals, these books being highlighted might come across as proving their point of intellectualism being elitist and or classist. But it's not. Whatever genres of books you choose to read in your personal time is your choice. But if you've gotten to the point where you're physically unable to sit with a book in a genre that maybe isn't one of your choice, then that is a problem. Being able to have media literacy is significant because it means you're not just able to consume what you want. You have the ability to consume other types and genres of content. This is all about ability. But even then, there's a literacy issue when even the books you are choosing to read or the books you do enjoy, you can't read them in entirety. You have to skip and skim because you're struggling to maintain patience and concentration. I've seen people making excuses that children's fictions and YA books are dialogue heavy because readers skip straight to dialogues. But you're a fully grown and developed adult. There's no way you should be comparing your media literacy skills to that of children. And of course there are exceptions, for example, neurodivergent people. But even then, give neurodivergent people credit to not infantilize them and assume that because of their disability they can't fully read a book. It's also significant to understand that if people read because they actually enjoyed reading, instead of just pretending to read for the internet and boasting about reading 300 or 1,000 books in a year, they could conceptualize that it literally doesn't matter how many books a year you read or how fast you read, and it's not a reading competition. So even if it takes you a month, 2 months, or even 3 months to finish one book, that's completely valid. But also, if you're supposedly reading 1,000 books in a year, there's no way you're actually processing and comprehending anything you're reading.
Let's say you read 900 books. I'm going to be generous and say each book you read was 200 pages. 200, that's not even the average length of the average book. I'm saying 200. I'm also going to say that you're a fast reader, okay? I did the math. It is between 3 and 4 hours that it takes to either listen to or read a book pretty quickly. That's about 200 pages. That is 9 hours a day of reading, and on average, 2.5 books. Physically, is that possible? Yes. But why? Why are you trying to consume 2.5 books a day? Authors put in so much work and effort, and I feel like you might physically be reading this, but are you reading it? Are you reading these books? There is no way that you can mentally consume that much and actually remember what you're reading. You didn't read 900 books. I'm sorry. You might have read them, but you didn't read them, and I don't care.
You don't need to skim a book or 2 books every day or every 2 days to keep up with the rest of book talk. And from the state of anti-intellectualism on book talk, this might be an unpopular opinion, but you can enjoy classics for fun. And it's crazy that this has to even be said. And the irony is that this idea that people who read or enjoy classics don't, or are just forcing it, is in itself inherently anti-intellectual. It's also just wrong, and most of the time feels more like a projection of whatever inferiority people feel in comparing their libraries to others. And this is most likely also coming from people who probably don't even enjoy reading, but have made it their entire personality and now feel like they have to defend their genre choices. It's the same reason as soon as Celine mentioned anti-intellectualism and was critiquing what BookTok has become, people were getting defensive and conjuring up the fantasy that she came on the internet and told them that classics are the only legitimate books to read and everything else is a waste of time, even though she stated that she predominantly reads fantasy.
I can't remember the last time I picked up a classic. I didn't once mention what genre we should be reading. The genre you read has no impact whatsoever on the type of intellectual discussion you engage in. No one is telling you to read classics. I don't read classics. No one's telling you to read literary fiction. I've only been reading literary fiction for the last 6 months. I am an avid, dedicated fantasy, dystopia, sci-fi reader. I would go to the death for fantasy, sci-fi, and dystopia, specifically high fantasy. I ride or die for that.
And in the midst of all of this BookTok drama, the election had people going on TikTok with the claim that reading isn't political, which only further corroborated the idea that BookTok lacks intellectualism. Reading and writing are inherently political. Everything we do is political, whether you're conscious of it or not. It's literally impossible to keep politics out of books, because the lives we live is influenced by politics. Politics controls the rights and freedoms we have, and in turn those rights and freedoms control what we can write about, what we can read, who we can be, and who we are as individuals and as a collective, whether we even have the right to exist. We see this in history today and in every human experience that there's ever been. There's a reason why in every totalitarian dictatorship and fascist regime, books are always the first to be banned and burned. Libraries, teachers, and education are always targeted and removed. Because to these regimes, education and reading is seen as a form of activism that threatens their authoritarianism. TikTok was shortly banned and could still be banned in the US because it's being used as a tool to educate people. It's been used as a tool to radicalize especially young people who are able to share and consume content from all over the world. What we read and what we write about is also always going to be a reflection of society, which is inherently political. There's a reason why Trump's Project 2025 proposes on banning books and further reducing fundings for public education. Let's not forget, public education is recent. For centuries, only royals could get educated, then only white wealthy men, then white wealthy women. Even when white wealthy women were allowed to receive education, they could only learn certain subjects like cooking for their husbands and being a housewife. Before that, white wealthy women were only accomplished if they could play the pianoforte, speak multiple languages, embroider exceptionally well, and bear heirs for their husbands. They weren't allowed to be sat in the same room as men learning about history or politics or law. Even when white women were allowed to be admitted into those spaces, they weren't allowed into those spaces. There were still limitations and regulations. Even today, this still happens around the world. And if you live in the US and feel like this doesn't affect or apply to you, it does. Because there are people who want to see women back in the time when they couldn't get an education. There are people who want to make sure only certain people from certain tax brackets can afford education. And they're being loud about it. They're admitting to wanting to take away women's books, education, and rights, as well as take away the public services that make books and education accessible for everyone. And you're on TikTok crying because someone said books are political.
Passed on the state level. Look at these books that have already been banned due to Republican measures. The Life of Rosa Parks. This apparently is too woke by the Republican Party. Song of Solomon is unacceptable to Republican politics. 40% of banned books have reported are significantly addressing and specifically addressing LGBT issues. To say and talk about government reach and freedom, this Republican bill is asking the government to force the outing of LGBT people before they are ready. And talking about the rights of parents in this gallery today, the National Parents Union is here saying, don't do this. I have a letter that I'd like to submit where they are asking the Republican Party to keep culture wars out of classrooms. Our children need urgent and aggressive educational solutions. The American Library Association coming out against this Republican proposal. When we talk about progressive values, I can say what my progressive value is, and that is freedom over fascism. Thank you very much.
Time is
Your lack of critical thinking and media literacy is literally being used against you. And some of you are more focused on protecting your privilege, because reading for escapism is a privilege.
So I made a video about how books are inherently political, and therefore Book Talk is a political space. And I received a lot of comments like this one up here saying, I read to escape. And I'm here to tell you, that's political too. It's political because it's a privilege that you can read to escape, that you can read, that you can escape, that you can access the books that you want to read, that those books haven't been banned. If there's one thing that reading widely has taught me, it's that there are narratives at play. There are narratives that you are being told. There are also narratives that you are not being told.
Even the fact that we need escapism from the world we reside in is political. All fictional books are in some way a reflection of society, and refusing to accept that is admitting that books have no value and are meaningless, which I reject. Every fantasy book, every romance book I've read has had a message, even Twilight, and we consciously or subconsciously engage with the politics behind those messages. Malala was shot and almost killed for wanting to read and get an education. I don't want to hear how people think books aren't political. The accessibility or lack of accessibility we have to books, to education, is political. The types of books and the genres of books we have access to is political. And for those on TikTok who only read smut and spicy books, those are political too. And there's a reason Trump wants to ban them as well. Fascist regimes are very conscious about the fact that anything that develops our critical thinking, that allows us any form of individuality and expression, is another way in which they lose control of the people. They're conscious that books and education have always been one of the most invaluable tools for us, the people, to resist and to oppose. Books are a direct reflection of our society. Even the most fantasy of books probably uses political plot devices, or is straight up inspired by real historical periods because of their politics. Everything to do with books, even the way books are published, is a reflection of society and politics. The way we gravitate towards and interpret a character is also very political and is a reflection of our society. You can read a book and refuse to accept the inherent politics, but that doesn't mean it's not there. Being able to reject politics in our everyday life is also in itself a privilege, because we don't realize how much privilege we have until we have to share that privilege or we lose that privilege. I'm adding this after finishing the script because the discourse on the rise of anti-intellectualism keeps being proven every day. Elon Musk is literally doing the Nazi salute on national TV, and there are people who are so brainwashed by their ideology that they can't even acknowledge the truth. Elon Musk can overtly do the Nazi salute, but if he says it wasn't the Nazi salute, some people lack the critical thinking and intellectualism, which is to be able to put the truth and facts above their emotions and what they want to be true. That's scary, and I'm terrified that we might already be at a point of no return. The very fact that an Anglican church priest mimicked Musk's action, and the very fact that this is even up for discussion, and that most likely Elon Musk isn't going to face any repercussions, is terrifying. Additionally, while making this video and trying to find clips, I watched a few videos about the Nazis burning books, and in most of them, I read comments defending the Nazis. People aren't afraid to say the quiet part out loud anymore. They're not afraid about the repercussions anymore, because there is none, or there are very few. People who have done zero reading and have zero levels of media literacy and critical thinking can defend the Nazis because it's contrarian to what they've been taught about the Nazis being bad. To them now, the Nazis were only burning woke books, as though these weren't the books being banned, as well as books written by Jewish and Polish authors, books by authors from other groups the Nazis deemed subhuman, and books by authors they found dangerous to their regime. To these people, if the Nazis are deemed bad by the establishment, then they must be good, because the establishment is bad. If I haven't stressed how dangerous and scary anti-intellectualism is, I hope this is reflecting that. This point in time isn't just about the society becoming more conservative with trad wives and soft girls. Society is becoming more fascist, and this isn't just in America, it's all over the world. Nothing's a coincidence, and so many people are on the alt-right pipeline and they don't even realize it until it's too late. This is why, as much as everyone loves to jump on the bandwagon that further education is a waste of time and money, it's actually not. It's one of the rare times in adulthood where people actually get to receive education and read and learn new things post-secondary and high school. And this isn't to say that you can only learn by reading or by going to school. But it's the few occasions where we get to do so in a space physically surrounded by other people who are learning the same things as we are. And whether we want to accept it or not, education is a way for most people to advance their lives and the lives of their families. And it is true that in 2025, social media makes it possible to make money and become successful without having to go to university. But the reality is, that is impossible for everyone. Actually, that is impossible for most people. And we've seen that time and time again. One day you're the biggest thing on the internet, and the next day you're an employee at McDonald's. And I remember maybe around 2016 when, even before people had gotten a secondary school education, they would drop out because they went viral and thought they were going to make it big, but now cease to exist on the internet. There's also an element where a lot of the time, the people I see making it big online aren't usually poor or working class people. They've usually had a privileged upbringing that even if they didn't have the internet, they would be just fine. Which brings me to the point of anti-intellectualism being a way that hoaxes working class people into remaining working class forever. It demonizes education, one of the most important tools that can help elevate people from poverty. It's the same way the wealthy have demonized immigrants and people from other races as being the reason why working class people are working class, rather than them being the reason. You end up fighting within yourselves and with people you have way more in common with than the actual people who are the problem. I'm making another edit after watching Kendrick Lamar's Super Bowl halftime performance because I've had this script shelved for the longest time, but I feel that some people's reaction is such an encapsulation of what we mean when we talk about the rise of anti-intellectualism. It was also a reflection of some people's inability to critically think. How do you watch that performance and leave thinking it was the most boring halftime performance ever, or hate it because you didn't want to think, you just wanted a performance?
I come to watch the Super Bowl to watch a performance. I didn't come to think. I didn't come to, like, it's a performance, okay? It's a music performance. I don't want to feel like I'm reading a book.
Music is an art form. Music is media, which is supposed to be thought-provoking. So when you're watching Kendrick Lamar, a Pulitzer-winning artist whose music is known for being thought-provoking, political and anti-establishment, and you're not able to lock in and critically engage with what he's putting out, or you're just mad he's not performing like a circus monkey for your enjoyment, then maybe it's time for some reflection. From Samuel L. Jackson as Uncle Sam, a personification of the US federal government, to the four-part performance that included Kendrick saying this,
"The revolution about to be televised, you picked the right time but the wrong guy,"
and this,
40 acres in the mule, this is bigger than the music.
Not to mention, the stage he performs on is literally in the shape of a PlayStation controller, and he rips the American flag in half. Kendrick used his performance to push for a revolution, to push for people to go against the government, stand together, to not be players in the game the US government are using them to play.
It's your uncle, Sam, and this is the great American game.
That's why in the final part he performed Not Like Us, because he wasn't supposed to. And for people to watch the whole performance and not get it is such a reflection of where we are, and it's not good. I would also like to touch on the older generations and their lack of media literacy and how that's having a supremely negative effect on us. Being Gen Z, IT was a subject I had to study as part of my primary and secondary school curriculum. Gen Z and millennials grew up with technology and social media, so media literacy has been taught to us from the very basics. Well, some of us. On the other hand, for older generations, the internet is very new to them, and social media is something that most older people had no access to until well into adulthood. So of course your mum and dad and your grandparents fall into the endless pit of Facebook conspiracies that I'm sure most of my audience are tired of receiving videos about. So it's ironic that the generation that wanted us to learn about technology and the internet are the ones who have fallen victim to it and believe everything they see online. And these generations of older people are the ones who have the most impact on our politics. Politics that is detrimental to their children and grandchildren. We've seen this with Brexit in the UK and the vehement support of the likes of Donald Trump, whose entire political career has been built on misinformation and conspiracies. I've gone back and forth on how we should go about this. Although when I initially wrote this script, I was of the belief that we shouldn't judge every right-wing MAGA supporter because our judgment only confirms to them that they're in the right. They see the backlash and judgment they receive as validation. And maybe we do need to be a more compassionate society, but I also think we need to bring back judgment, accountability, and shame. We need to make them less comfortable with their ideology because it's dangerous. Yes, it's not our responsibility to educate people, especially alt-right people who don't care about the lives and well-beings of others who are different to them. But I do think we're also at a point where no one wants to feel responsibility to anyone, even towards the people we love and we inevitably have some level of responsibility towards. This is a larger issue, and it's come with the rise of therapy speech in our relationships. We're becoming a more lonely and isolated society, which makes it harder for people to connect as human beings and less as pawns in the political games of our governments. I feel like this video was all over the place. I initially was just going in the direction of book talk, but while this script was shelved for so many months, things just kept happening that I felt needed to be included. I think that even if you're not a reader, we should all once in a while pick up a book. Everyone watching this video should read, watch, or listen to something, anything that's thought-provoking to them. Consume it, deep it, and think too deeply about what you've consumed. Because as a society, we're so in that era where nobody wants to think too deeply, and people don't want to care too much or more than other people. And that's dangerous. That's how we get dictators and wannabe dictators like Donald Trump. And we do need to touch grass, because I do think that technology and social media has become an addiction to a lot of people. It's changed the way people engage with media, and even when things are broken down to their simplest forms, some people still don't get it, and that's a problem. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it, because it's something I've been thinking about for a long time now. But if you did, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and please give the video a share. Thank you, bye!